This is the Garden of English. I'm Tim Freitas. Today we're finishing our scaffolding rhetorical analysis series as we talk about message and purpose. So let's do it. Alright, we are trying to keep these videos quick, but because this is a Garden of English video and I have Patreon supporters, I want to make sure that I honor them right over here. If you're interested in supporting the Garden of English through Patreon, you can check out the Patreon link that is probably right around the bottom of the screen right now. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to some of the companies that do indeed support the Garden of English. One of them would be Parlay. You can check them out, I should say, at our link down in the description down below, but also Applied Practice. And the reason I want to bring up Applied Practice right now is because not only do they offer mock exams, which I've talked about in other videos, however, they also offer benchmark exams. It's the beginning of the school year. If you're looking for a pre-test and kind of post-test for your students, that is incredibly affordable and scored in, assessed by other people, by the way, and they give you tons of data and feedback, right? You're going to want to check out what Applied Practice has to offer for their benchmark testing services. And you can actually just inquire about that from the affiliate link down below. So a huge shout out to Parlay, huge shout out to Applied Practice, two companies that I really appreciate working with here at the Garden of English. Now, with all of that being said, and all of my appreciation for those companies and for those people, let's finally talk about the last part of our rhetorical situation. The basis of everything that we do is the concrete and the abstract. Everything we do in rhetoric, even everything we do in literature, right? We look at concrete actions of characters in order to judge their abstract qualities. It's about making inference, right? So we always combine the concrete and abstract, whether it's literary or rhetorical in nature. And the same is true with each part of the rhetorical situation. So make sure you check out the other videos that I did about scaffolding the rhetorical situation and why we shouldn't engage with rhetoric with only just ethos, pathos, and logos. By the way, we shouldn't even use those terms. You can also check out that video up here. Okay, we want to scaffold the rhetorical situation because now everything can actually make sense. We've talked about context and exigence and how those relate to the concrete and the abstract. We've talked about speaker and audience and how those relate to the concrete and the abstract. And the last two parts of the rhetorical situation are typically listed as the message and the purpose. However, I would like to point out that when I scaffold this in my classroom, I do not actually use the language message and purpose. I actually use subject and purpose, and I take the idea of what the message is and put it into my definition of purpose. Now, you don't have to do that, but I'm going to explain why I do so. The reason why I have kids look for the subject of a piece is because I ask them to read a piece and then say, okay, what is this piece about, both concretely and abstractly? And because of that, what that is meant to do is that is meant to get kids to say, okay, I know what this piece is actually talking about in terms of, you know, what it's meant to actually do. And you can think of like a, you know, any type of commercial or anything like that. Let's think of a Doritos commercial. Okay. And what happens there is they're concretely talking about Doritos. But if you have this commercial about Doritos that's funny and full of life and vibrant colors, right? Concretely, we're talking about Doritos, but abstractly, we're talking about value. We're talking about liveliness. We're talking about flavor and taste. Okay, I think about a commercial a few years ago where someone had Dorito residue on his fingers and another person came over and like licked it off. And everybody was like disgusted. And sure enough, though, that was hysterical. But that's what I was thinking. That's the commercial I was thinking of when I just mentioned Doritos concretely. And then all of a sudden how they're funny and lively and tasty. And the reason why is because if I look at this idea of subject, both as concrete and abstract, and one of them is what are we concretely talking about? And the other one is what are the ideas that are abstract? If you put those together, that's how you can actually scaffold the understanding of message if you're a student or if you're trying to help your students have better reading comprehension, right? What's the message of the author? Put the concrete subject with the abstract subject and see what actually flows out. And for my example with this Doritos commercial, it would be, right, Doritos are incredibly tasty. The company itself is lively and humorous and therefore exciting, and therefore you should want to buy Doritos. And that wanting to buy Doritos, by the way, is going to be the purpose here. Okay, so what ends up happening here is if I have subject in my rhetorical triangle instead of message, I separate that out into, all right, what topic are we talking about concretely? What topic are we talking about abstractly? We put those two together, and that's going to help us find our full purpose. Now, my definition of purpose is what the audience is supposed to understand and do after experiencing the discourse, whether it be a commercial or a text or anything like that. And the reason why I have the understand is because that's abstract. But what are they supposed, what's the person supposed to understand or the audience supposed to understand? That's the message. How do I get the message? I just take the subject, both concretely and abstractly, and put it together. And then once we have what the audience is supposed to understand, we then say, what is the audience supposed to do? And that's going to be purpose. And now we have the concrete and abstract in purpose as well. Why? Because the abstract is understand this. The concrete is now go do this. And when that comes together, you now have a fully functioning rhetorical situation, especially if you've thought about context and exigence as the concrete and the abstract elements of the speaker, the concrete and abstract elements of the audience, and now the concrete and abstract elements of the subject. And that all helps contribute to this idea of the purpose. And so if I were to have a purpose statement about that Doritos commercial that I just mentioned, I wonder if I can even link it up in the corner there. Maybe, maybe not. If you see a little eye indicator show up, I did. If not, I couldn't find it on YouTube. But nonetheless, okay, my purpose there would be Doritos creates that disgusting commercial in order to highlight how lively and fun and tasty the Doritos actually are, and ultimately moving the viewers to buy the product. And now I have a full understanding of what's going on here in terms of purpose, but that comes from my understanding of the subject. So we want to tie those things together. We don't want to actually just say, let's look at each part of the rhetorical triangle or all parts of the rhetorical situation separately. We want to put them all together here as we provide our full commentary. And as we think about lessons that can scaffold like this, that's what we want to do. We want to get kids always looking at everything as the concrete and the abstract, always driving towards purpose. And in that final purpose statement, you're going to see the speaker's name show up, you're going to see the audience show up, and you're going to actually see the message show up, which is the topic, both as, or should I say the subject, both as the concrete and the abstract. And you're going to see what people need to do. And because of that, you'll see the concrete and abstract all throughout that final statement. And you will know if your kids have actually analyzed rhetoric well. Notice, I haven't talked about ethos, pathos, logos, rhetorical choices, anything. But if I can get kids to that purpose statement, they've been able to analyze the rhetoric, or at least conceptualize the rhetoric, which will make more deeper rhetorical analysis with choices and whatnot much, much easier later. So if this video was helpful, I'm going to ask that you actually just click like and subscribe, because that's the easiest way that you can help support the Garden of English. I'd also like to remind you that you can also help in other free ways, such as following us on Facebook and on Instagram and things of that nature. We do have merch at thegardenofenglish.com. We have posters, we've got t-shirts and other fun things like that. So you'll want to check that out. We also have other opportunities for teacher materials that are on that website as well. There are some companies that, a few of them that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but other companies that we work with, we have affiliate links down below if you want to check out what they have to offer. That would be totally cool. And then, you know, I guess now I could say it's time to go. But when I say go, I mean GOE for the Garden of English. It's nice to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you soon.